Some mornings, love doesn't need to be spoken, it only needs to be seen. Seen in the watchful eyes of a child sitting guard over a sleeping sibling. Seen in the way a small monkey quietly takes the bike and heads off to the market on his own, without anyone asking, without anyone telling him to, simply because he wants mum to rest a little. Today is one of those mornings. An ordinary day in a small, warm home, but one filled with the kinds of moments that, if you were not paying attention, you might miss entirely. The kinds of moments that only when you look back, you realize, ah, this is how love grows, quietly, simply, and so very beautifully. That morning, Cubis and BUEM were sitting beside the baby together, two small heads bent low, eyes fixed on their little sister lying on the mat. No one had told them to sit there, no one had assigned them a post. They were just there, because the baby was there, and that was reason enough. The baby lay still for a while, then slowly at first, then faster, she began to stir. Those tiny little legs kicked and pushed, her small body tilted to one side, and then she rolled. She rolled over. Cubis leapt up. He could hold it in. The joy burst out immediately, completely, without any need to contain it. He looked at the baby, looked at BUEM, then looked back at the baby again, his eyes lit up like someone who had just witnessed something miraculous. And to Cubis, it truly was a miracle. His little sister, the one he had sat beside through so many mornings, had just rolled over on her own for the very first time. But right behind that joy, a flash of worry crossed Cubis' mind. The baby could roll over now, which meant she could roll right off the mat. She could fall. She could get hurt. Cubis didn't need anyone to tell him. He already knew exactly what to do. He quickly reached for the pillows nearby. This one, that one, and began tucking them in on both sides all around the baby, building a soft, gentle barrier. Each pillow was placed carefully, then checked. Is it snug enough? Is it secure? He worked with the seriousness of someone carrying out an important task, not hurried, not careless. When he was done, Cubis stood back up and looked down at the baby one more time. She lay nestled in the ring of pillows, safe and warm. Cubis gave a satisfied nod. Good. He stayed right where he was, not going anywhere, eyes still on his sister, because standing guard, for a Cubis, wasn't an obligation, it was simply what he wanted to do. Outside, Mom had started getting ready. The sound of the bike being wheeled out from the side path drifted in. A light clinking of metal, the quiet roll of wheels on packed earth. The familiar sounds of a morning when Mom is preparing to go to the market. Mom stepped into the room, smiled at the two of them sitting there watching the baby, and gave her instructions. You two stay home and be good. Keep an eye on the baby for me. Mortluklung be back soon. Cubis heard her, but something in his mind wasn't settled. He looked at the baby. She had just learned to roll, and he knew very well the particular kind of unease that came with watching a baby who was learning something new. What if she rolled outside the pillows? What if BUEM didn't notice in time? Cubis wanted another adult at home. He looked around. Where was Dad? He quietly told Mom, could she take him to find Dad? Mom led him to look. Dad was in the bathroom. Cubis waited outside for a moment, then turned back to Mom. Well then, a different thought crossed his mind. He wanted to go to the market with Mom instead. But Mom paused. She looked at Cubis, then looked toward the room where the baby was lying. She thought back to what had just happened. The baby could roll over now. If both Cubis and Mom went out, only BUEM would be home to watch the baby. BUEM was still small, not quite ready to handle things alone if something happened. Mom couldn't feel at ease about that. The two of them stood there, looking at each other for a moment. Mom needed someone to go to the market. Cubis wanted to go with her, but someone also needed to stay home with the baby. It was a puzzle without an easy answer. Then Mom had a thought. She looked at Cubis with a particular expression, the look of someone about to place their trust in another person. And she asked, how about you go to the market for me? Buy whatever you'd like. What trust you? Cubis heard Mom finish speaking and stood still for just a moment. Then he nodded. No hesitation, no further questions. Just a single firm, responsible nod. Mom carried Cubis out to the bike. Then she did what she always did. She took his hat, placed it on his head, and straightened it just right. Her hands were gentle and familiar, the way a mother's hands always carry a warmth that cannot be mistaken for anyone else's in the world. Mom looked at Cubis and said softly, "Be careful on the road, okay?" Just a few words. But in those few words lived a whole world of worry and love. The worry of a mother watching her child head out alone, and the love of a mother who believes her child can do it. Cubis settled onto the bike, hands gripping firmly. He looked at Mom one more time before going, and then he began to pedal out through the gate. The morning road opened up in front of him, not too wide, not too long, but today it felt different. Today, Cubis wasn't going with Mom, he was going alone. And that feeling, part nervous, part proud, part something quietly precious, stayed with him the whole way. On both sides of the road, the trees were deeply green. Small wildflowers along the path trembled in the morning breeze. The smell of damp earth from the night before still lingered in the air. Cubis rode without hurrying. He took everything in, his eyes brightening with each thing he noticed. A falling leaf, a yellow flower, early sunlight filtering through the canopy and laying long golden streaks across the road. It was a beautiful morning, and Cubis, he was riding to the market on his own, doing this for Mom, on a morning as beautiful as this one. Back at home, after the sound of Cubis' bike had faded away down the morning road, everything settled back into its familiar rhythm. Mom was inside the room, her hands moving steadily as she tidied, folding blankets, rearranging a corner, picking up small things, lowy epte scattered here and there. BUEM sat beside the baby, continuing the watchful duty she and her brother had shared since morning. The baby lay in the ring of pillows. Cubis had arranged, shifting gently every now and then, her clear eyes gazing up at the ceiling. That small room, even missing one familiar little figure, was still warm in the way it always was. Then the sound of the bathroom door opening. Dad stepped out, walked up toward the room, looked around, saw Mom tidying, saw BUEM keeping watch over the baby, but didn't see Cubis anywhere. Dad asked, "Where's Cubis?" Mom did look up, hands still moving, and said simply, "You were in the bathroom too long. Cubis already went to the market on his own." Dad stood still for a second, then looked toward the doorway, the direction Cubis had gone. Something crossed his face that was both surprised and not surprised at all, both amused and quietly moved. The feeling of someone watching their child grow up, watching them step out into the world on their own, and not knowing whether to feel happy or to feel how quickly time passes. Mom glanced over at Dad, a small smile flickering briefly, and said nothing more. There was nothing more that needed to be said. Cubis arrived at the market and stopped his bike at the edge of the road. He looked around, familiar, yet somehow different today, perhaps because today he had come here as a real shopper in his own right, not tagging along beside Mom. He walked up to the first stall, one selling beng hoi, the thin woven rice noodles. The faint warm scent of the noodles drifted through the morning market air, light and familiar. Cubis looked at the neatly stacked boxes, then chose one. He paid, carefully placed it on his bike, checked that it was secure, and only then got back on and continued on his way. A little further along, he stopped again. This time in front of a different stall, a different kind of treat, a different smell. But the way Cubis looked at this particular stall held something more than just a customer browsing for himself. He wasn't he, looking with the eyes of someone searching for what they personally wanted. He was looking with the eyes of someone thinking of another person. This was something Mom liked. He remembered clearly. There had been a time he went to the market with Mom, and she had stopped in front of this very stall, looked at it for a moment, then walked on without buying. Today, Cubis stood before that same stall and did not hesitate. He bought it. Not because anyone had told him to, not because anyone had reminded him. Only because he remembered that Mom liked it, and he wanted to bring it home to her. With everything bought, he arranged his things on the bike, carefully, neatly, then got on and turned toward home. The road back was just as beautiful as the road there. The sun had climbed a little higher, warming the surface of the path. The roadside flowers were still there, still swaying gently, as if waving to him a second time that day. Cubis rode slowly, not because he was tired, but because he wanted to hold on to this moment a little longer. The moment of someone who had just finished doing something meaningful and was on their way home. The familiar sound of a bike rolled in from outside the gate. Dad and Mom, still inside the room, heard it immediately. Mom looked toward the door, a smile already forming before she even had time to think about it. Dad picked up BUEM and stepped quickly outside. Cubis had barely guided his bike into the yard when he saw Dad already standing there waiting. BUEM in Dad's arms, her round little eyes looking at her brother, clear and curious. Dad looked at Cubis, then looked down at the things on the bike, this box of bang hoy, that bag of treats. Dad bent down and began taking the items off the bike, carrying them inside. No big speech, just his hands quietly lifting each thing, one at a time, the way a father's hands say what words don't always say, Mott. See what you did, and you did well. Mum came out, and her eyes moved over everything Cubis had brought back. They stopped on the bag of treats, the ones Cubis had bought especially for her. She looked up, looked at Cubis, and gently stroked his head. Mom said, "You re so good. You went to the market and did the shopping all by yourself." Mama's words weren't long, they weren't elaborate. But to Cubis, that hand resting gently on his head and those few words, they held everything he needed to hear after a morning of going out on his own and coming back on his own. He stood there and let Mom stroke his hair, and he smiled, the smile of a child being praised by the person he loves most. And there is no smile in the world more beautiful than that one. Dad brought the food inside, set it down, and began laying it out, opening the box of bang hoy, opening the bags of treats, arranging everything so the whole family could share. No formal table was set, no elaborate spread prepared, just the things Cubis had brought back from the market, laid out in the middle of the room, with the whole family gathered around. BUEM squeezed herself in between everyone, both hands already reaching out before Dad had even finished setting things down. Mom sat beside her, taking a portion for BUEM, then one for Cubis. Dad sat down, picked up a piece of cake and tried it, nodded, good. And so they ate, eating and talking and laughing, stories without clear beginnings or endings, laughter without needing reasons, just the feeling of a family sitting together and being happy. Mom retold the story of the baby rolling over, her voice a mixture of delight and still fresh nervousness. Dad listened, glanced over at the baby lying nearby and smiled. Cubis heard Mom retell it and smiled too, as if that morning moment had been lived again, this time with the whole family listening along. Then Dad glanced over at Cubis, just briefly, lightly, but with something in it that carried real weight. He gave Mom a small, quiet signal. She understood immediately, turning to look back at him. They looked at each other and smiled, the smile of two people, thinking the same thing at the same moment, valuing the same thing at the same moment, without needing to say a single word about it. What was that thing? Perhaps it was the image of Cubis that morning, alone, hat on, setting off on his bike, alone at the market, remembering on his own which treat Mom liked. Perhaps it was the way a child grows up so quietly that parents don't always notice, until an ordinary morning like this one comes along and gently reminds them. Cubis didn't know what his parents were thinking. He only knew that the whole family was sitting together, eating the things he had brought home, and everyone was happy. For him, that alone was more than enough. Cubis' morning today held nothing grand. No adventure, no suspense, no dramatic turns. Just a small monkey putting on his hat, getting on his bike, going to the market, buying some things, and coming home. But if you look a little closer, you will find so much inside that nothing grand. You'll see a child who noticed a problem on his own. The baby could roll, pillows needed to be tucked, and handled it himself, without anyone prompting him. You will see a child who didn't stand there, waiting for adults to sort things out, but stepped up and offered to help. You'll see a child who, out at the market surrounded by 100 different things, still remembered which treat Mom liked and quietly bought it to bring home, not to show off, not hoping for praise, simply because he wanted Mom to be happy. These are not the actions of someone who is still very small. These are the actions of a heart that is learning how to love, learning day by day, through small acts, through ordinary gestures. And the lesson from this morning is not only for Cubis, it's for all of us. That love does not have to be grand. Sometimes love is just remembering what Mom likes to eat and bringing it home. Sometimes it's sitting beside a sleeping sibling without anyone asking. Sometimes it's being willing to go out alone, even when you still small, even when you a little nervous, just so the person you love can rest for a little while. Love, when we are young, looks exactly like this, honest, innocent, and more beautiful than anything else in the world. Thank you so much for following along with Cubis today. If this story reminded you of someone, a mother, a memory, or a time you did something small but did it from the heart, share it in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep journeying alongside Cubis in the episodes ahead. Until next time.